Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're going to break down a really powerful teaching philosophy, something that completely changes how we think about the classroom: inclusive lesson planning. It's all about designing lessons that truly work for everyone.
Okay, let's just dive right in with a question that, honestly, every teacher, parent, and even student has thought about. You walk into any classroom, right? You got some kids who pick things up in a snap, others who need a bit more support, some who are super visual, and others who just have to get their hands on stuff to learn. So, how on earth do you design a lesson that actually reaches all of them?
Well, for a long time, the go-to answer was this kind of one-size-fits-all approach. But here's the thing about that model. It has a fundamental flaw. Sure, some students will do great, but others are, almost by design, left behind. The big shift we're talking about today is moving toward inclusive design, where the goal, right from the very start, is to make sure every single student can jump in, learn, and succeed.
You might be thinking, does this mean creating dozens of totally different lessons? And the answer is no way. It's impossible for any teacher. This is all about a smarter design philosophy from the get-go.
And that is the absolute core of inclusive lesson planning. It's not about some massive overhaul for every kid. Nope. It's all about making these small but really powerful adaptations. Things like using more visuals, or maybe offering different levels of a task, or just allowing for more flexible ways to participate. These little tweaks can completely open up access to learning for everyone in the room.
So the big question is, how do you actually do this? Well, there are two core tools in the toolkit that make this totally achievable for any educator. The first is a concept called differentiation, and the second is this simple but honestly brilliant framework known as the 5E model. So let's break them both down. First up, differentiation. I know, it sounds kind of complex, but it's really simple. It just means you adapt one of three things: the content, so what the students are learning; the process, as in how they're learning it; and finally, the product, which is how they show you what they've learned. It's all about building in flexibility. Okay. So if differentiation gives you the flexible parts, what's the structure that holds all these adaptations together? You can almost think of this next part as the blueprint, or maybe a recipe, for a truly engaging and effective lesson.
It's called the 5E model: engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. Now, what makes this so powerful and just inherently inclusive is that it doesn't start with a teacher just talking at students. It starts with the student. It begins by engaging their curiosity, pulling on what they already know. From there, it moves them toward a really deep understanding through active learning, not just, sitting there and passively listening.
Okay, so this is the crucial point, right? How does all this theory actually work in a real classroom? Because theory is one thing, but seeing it in practice is everything. So let's walk through this absolutely brilliant example lesson called From Waste to Art.
The lesson kicks off, of course, with the very first E: engage. And remember, the goal here isn't to lecture. It's to spark some genuine curiosity about waste and recycling and even art. And how do you do that? Well, the teacher shows these really provocative images. First, you see pollution, but then you see this incredible art made from recycled stuff. Then they throw out these big open-ended questions like, can waste actually be useful? That immediately gets students thinking and connecting to what they already know. Okay, next we move into the explore phase. This is where the students get their hands dirty, maybe literally in this case, and they start investigating the topic all on their own. So students get into these small mixed ability groups, which, by the way, is an inclusive strategy all by itself. Their task? To check out different waste materials and just brainstorm ideas for an eco-art poster. And the teacher's role here is to be a guide, a facilitator, just encouraging everyone to jump in. So now we land at the explain stage. And notice the timing here. Only after the students have had a chance to explore for themselves does the teacher step in to connect the dots and introduce the more formal concepts.
The teacher explains the key ideas, sustainability, recycling, but then they introduce this really powerful core message: that art isn't just about looking pretty. It can actually be a tool for social change and for raising environmental awareness.
And this leads us right into the elaborate stage. This is where students get to take all the concepts they've just learned and actually apply them in a new, really creative way.
And this moment right here is such a brilliant illustration of differentiation. It shows how you can make a single task accessible for a whole classroom of diverse learners. It's the same core project, just with different levels of support and challenge built right in.
So check this out. For a support group, They might use pre-cut materials and get a little more step-by-step guidance. The main group, they create a standard poster. And then, an advanced group, they get challenged to design something even more complex, maybe even adding a slogan in a different language. See, everyone is making a poster, but the task is tailored so that they can all succeed and feel challenged. It's fantastic.
Finally, we have the evaluate stage. And you gotta know, in an inclusive model like this one, this is about so much more than just slapping a grade on something at the end.
The evaluation here is done through what's called a gallery walk. The groups present their posters, and their classmates actually give them feedback. The teacher's assessing the whole process, the participation, the collaboration, the creativity, not just the final piece of art. And just as important, the students get a chance to reflect on their own learning journey.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. We've seen the model in action, step by step. What's the big picture payoff? Why does designing lessons this way even matter?
Well, by shifting our whole way of thinking, away from teaching everyone the exact same way, we create a learning environment that is just fundamentally richer. When we use active learning, when we provide choices and adapt activities, we build a classroom that doesn't just support the students who are struggling, it engages and challenges every single student.
You know, when you boil it all down, the goal is pretty simple, but it's also incredibly profound. It's about designing our teaching in a way that makes sure every single student in that room has a real, genuine opportunity to access learning and to show what they know.
And that leaves us with one final thought to take away with you. Whether you're a teacher or a manager, or really just anyone who shares knowledge, what's one small, smart adaptation you could make that might just open up a whole world of learning for someone else?